Happy Monday, everybody.
Heck yes! I'm totally excited for the beginning of my week, because it's definitely the beginning of the week and not the end of a 5-day Vegas extravaganza that ended at 2 or 3 in the morning last night. Hoo boy.
Yeah, big shout out to anybody that saw us out at Scoop Fest.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great time. Get to meet up with so many fun Magic people. But now it's back to what we do best: get weird on a Monday.
I don't know about you, Bryce, but I'm going to cherish those memories forever. Oh, wait.
Oh,
Oh, it's okay. I mean, it's definitely not like you don't do anything super cool that I wasn't a part of, or that I had to hear about Rudy Kobe's religious eclipse experience.
That was an adventure.
No, Brian was like halfway through his pitch to Rudy to come down to Austin for the next eclipse, and Rudy was like, okay, cool, that sounds like really interesting. How much coverage time are you guys gonna get? And Brian's like, oh, minute, 50 seconds to a minute. And he's like, now that I've done heroin, Dallas has 2 minutes worth of heroin. So I think I'm going to go where there's 2 minutes worth of heroin instead of 1 minute worth of heroin.
Yeah, Rudy and I watched it from Rexburg, Idaho.
oh, nice.
That was amazing. That was just middle of America, wonderful small town, and Rudy Kobe, aka Labman, is dressed as.
Who, by the way, if you're curious, there's no off time for Labman. Lab hours are infinite.
Interesting thing, a week ago, Nobel Prize winner physicist Leon Lederman passed away, and he actually was living at Rexburg in like a retirement home at that point. Which,
oh wow,
had I known, actually would have tried to visit him.
Very cool.
That's one of the things that happens too, which is like, Martin Gardner, spent last part of his life in retirement home. I mean, he had visitors, but I mean, he was still a person that, you could go visit and say, hey, go visit this guy. So some of these people you go, where are they? And they're still there. And,
yeah,
maybe say hi.
Well, yeah, Martin Gardner was just visited by a procession, a who's who of Magic for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm good to go on my side. You guys all ready?
Yeah, almost done.
I'm ready.
Oh, you're
Yeah, sorry, just give me 30 more seconds. All right, there you go. Done.
All right, then take it away in 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to the Weird Things podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Brian Brushwood.
Hey man, they call me Vegas B now. That's once you spend 4.5 days in Vegas, meeting all your heroes and hanging out with them in the VIP lounge, you have to change your name. So I'm Vegas B from now on.
Well, somebody who's a little bit too pure, too good, and too much down-to-earth man to ever go to Vegas and do something like that is Justin Robert Young.
Hey, man, it's me, Vegas J. I've got a real ragged out voice from spending so much time in Vegas.
I wonder if there's like some research on like the voice levels, like the deepness of people who live in towns like Vegas and Atlantic City versus other places.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a gig. I was doing like some emceeing for like a movie promo company at nightclubs, and my voice dropped down to like this. And I'd get on the phone, and I got like bookings out of that, like, "Oh, we love your voice." I'm like, just speaking of lovely voices, Mr. Bryce Castillo, our super producer extraordinaire.
Hi, everybody. I'm here in the background. Hi.
Oh, you don't have a Vegas name?
No, I was
Because privately we refer to you as the Japanese angel.
Oh,
Like
wait.
with that voice, serenading A. That's
not
what we
a
call
lot
you.
of people heard that story.
Yeah, very briefly, one of the nights in Vegas that stretched on longer than it would have otherwise because it's Vegas, found Bryce and I at a karaoke establishment wherein I was unprepared for Bryce to make all of his selections, A, Japanese songs, B, sung in Japanese, as he ripped off one after another. Like, I was not aware that. I don't think Bryce speaks. Do you speak? Like,
a little bit, yeah.
Okay, so
Skoshi.
I'm not aware at your fluency in Japanese, let alone your singing ability in Japanese, and I was continually impressed.
Oh, thank you. Arigato.
Don't touch my mustache. Gentlemen, I look at a map of the United States. Actually, there's a map of the United States not too far from me. And, you ever get a feeling, like a burning sensation in your mind?
Oh, good.
In your mind.
I know we just got back from Vegas, but it was a little quick to go there. All right.
Yeah, I wasn't there, all right? And you're like, there's something going on there. There's something, some people call it bias. Some people call it prejudice. I call it intuition and the ability to judge things without any information at all. And I look at the spot on the map and I'm like, there's weirdness going on there. There's some real weirdness that I think we all need to go as a team and investigate.
Okay,
All right.
I'm in.
Now, this happens to be Austin, Texas, and conveniently located for Brian, is totally irrelevant.
Hells yes.
I'm saying this. I'm gonna put it out here on the air right now on the podcast, on the bits. We need to do a live Weird Things investigation somewhere in Texas.
Sure. I'm totally in. It sounds like you have a possible offering.
Not a clue. I'm actually trying to Google Austin, Texas paranormal right now.
I'll tell you this much. Before we even get to the paranormal, if you want to talk about like a really wild experience, and this is something that luckily not only Justin and I have experienced, but you can experience at home. I was really surprised what it was like to be in the underground natural bridge caverns south of Austin, Texas. Now, as far as I know, there's no supernatural things associated with it, but if you love flirting with claustrophobia and also the awesome sight of geological structures that took thousands of years to form, oh boy, that was a really fascinating experience. And we did it in VR on the Discovery VR app. You can download it and either look at it on your phone or through the Vive or any VR whatever.
Oh no, you can definitely. But please check that out. I will say that if there isn't spooky tales about those caves, it will not take long to invent one, because the natural, as I found out firsthand, the natural arc of all subterranean geology is Lovecraft. Like it eventually just all makes its way into spindly, terrifying structures that look like screaming faces of souls trapped long ago.
Yeah, dude, I saw Poltergeist too. I'm familiar with the thing that should not be. Absolutely.
There you have it. What cave was this?
It's called Natural Bridge Caverns, and
was
it's about 30 or 40 minutes south of Austin. And it's one of those things that you hear about, and then like my kids had gone, but I hadn't. But of course, being part of a production crew, you get sort of the deluxe tour of everything. And there's this one moment, I don't know, I forget what they call it, like the ascent of the gods or whatever, but it's like very clearly, normally the experience is a giant line of people shuffle their way up this this spindly staircase looking thing. But we were told, take this stick and just experience its majesty. And so we did. And it was like, it was a religious experience, man. I can't even put words to what it must have been like to discover upon this. And this is, there's a science fiction book called The Descent that postulates that hell is a real place, that basically there's a honeycomb of tunnels like these all the way down, and that there are humanoids, some humans evolved and lived on planet Earth on the surface. Another set of them evolved and lived beneath the surface. They called them hadals, Hadals. They basically took on vampire-like qualities and were these, all
Take
of
that
these,
off my reading list now.
no, it was great and claustrophobic and crazy. And if I let my brain drift to that book too much, it became very unpleasant very quickly.
No, it's actually, if you in that video that Bryce was showing, I was the one who had to carry the VR rig because there was nobody else with us. The sound people were following behind. It was not well lit, and you can see how excited I am to be having both my hands occupied on this VR rig while we walk up this dank path filled with nothing but permanent misery spiring up around us. It was a terrifying place.
But also strangely beautiful and wonderful, and
that's all you. Like, sure, it was strange. I don't know. I mean, like, it was certainly amazing that could be naturally formed if that's what you believe by way of the official story, and it's not definitely just a hellmouth that is slowly flirting with souls before it reopens and brings.
Could you imagine like a special tour where it's like, it's the same place as this tourist attraction, but it's like, okay, rules are we're all going to take psilocybin, and then this guy's going to tell a really good ghost story, and then we're going to go in.
You don't need drugs. Like, literally, if you just took that exact thing, but put in a few different sound effects, some repeating sound effects, and only let X amount of people in at a time, so all you'd be able to do is hear. You wouldn't even need to have some teenager in a mask jump out from behind a corner. That would be a legit terrifying experience.
Yeah, and there was, even as we were shooting this, and I know it's safe and all that, but it's like, that's how you get, trapped into
Nothing bad ever happens to anybody in a cave.
I mean, that's just it, right? Is you have a dangerous thought, and then you get caught in that dangerous thought loop, and all of a sudden it's like, this is deeply unpleasant, and all of this could cave in and trap, and this could be where I die. Also, why is there no Wi-Fi signal? Oh, that's right, because we are half a mile underground.
And not to mention that, there were parts of that cave. Actually, I think it would be right behind where we are right now in the video. That is still undiscovered cave. Like, there's a few areas that are really dangerous to do, and it doesn't really make sense for them to build anything out that would connect with everybody. But it was crazy. Go watch the video and understand that I was about 75% more terrified than I was letting on.
So back to our initial request is any weirdness out there in Texas, maybe around the Austin area, we should investigate. We're looking for suggestions for the next Weird Things Live, because it's been like 10 years, I think, since we did the last one. So maybe we're due.
The seal is the membrane between the weird world and ours has grown thin yet again. Weird Things fans.
Yeah.
It is time.
We did our live investigation, the Hunt for the Night Creeper, which is still such a blast. If you could track it down, that was a lot of fun. But then I think the closest was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, while on tour. Chad and I happened to stay at that hotel that they casually mentioned there was one haunted room, and we're like, please give us the haunted room. and we did our best to try to contact the spirits that be.
Yeah. So we're open to suggestions.
If I remember correctly, Chad very much was a conduit for the investigation. He was very, very scared, which made for everything to be that much better.
And if you need any more proof of this, it's a story we haven't talked about yet. But there's been a portent in the sky. What more proof do we need that the veil has slipped and the worlds between here and the beyond are starting to connect? When astronomers report they've discovered another planet, a dwarf planet, but hey, who's going to quibble, in our solar system called Goblin.
No way. No way. No way. We have a new planet and it's called Goblin?
Dwarf planet.
Whatever. I mean, okay, I could stand on it, right? Like,
Yes.
So
yes.
a dwarf
200
planet,
miles across.
like
200 miles across.
A dwarf planet has a big enough gravity well, I would assume, that if I was standing on it, no matter how hard I jumped, I wouldn't leave the gravity well, right? Because I think that's true for many like comets and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's more land area than Rhode Island. Let's put it that way. Okay. So what happened is there's been this search because we're looking for Planet X. Some people want to call it Planet 9 because Pluto's no longer a planet. Up for debate. You know, guess what? You have a group of astronomers can say, hey, this is what we agreed to, and some people can say no, and you can call it whatever you want. I call them gumdrops in the sky. So they were looking for new gumdrops in the sky because they think the Planet 10, Planet X is better because X means mystery. This is the hypothesized massive planet that could be way at the outer edges of our solar system. There's been some Konstantin Batygin, some other astronomers have noticed this very interesting pattern where these Oort cloud, these outer body objects from our solar system seem to be collecting towards a point, which would imply that there is a very massive body, something like maybe bigger than the Earth out there. And this has been nicknamed could be, like a Neptune-sized object. And this has been called Planet 10, or, there's different names for it, but this idea, the new Planet 9, they'll figure it out. And that could mean that there's just another massive planet out there, but it's so far out there, it's hard to detect it. Okay. So what they do is they're looking for evidence by looking for other objects. Because it's massive, it would be pulling the orbits of other things, comets, dwarfs, whatever asteroids and stuff would be collecting towards it. And in the search in that part of the sky, guess what? They just found another dwarf planet, and it's been nicknamed or called Goblin.
Okay. All right. This is what I want to get to. Is there any explanation on why it is called Goblin? Is there like a scientific reference that is being made, or did the person who named it, are they listening right now and they're just a fan of weird things and they were choosing between the goblin or the snake?
I would love to believe it's the latter, but if I was going to, and this is pure speculation on my part, I would expect that this anomaly, like this is the ghost in the machine that's mixing up a bunch of orbital trajectories in ways that we can't figure out. Like there's something out there that's causing a bunch of these bodies to not move the way we expect. And so it seems like a fine thing to say, like, man, that goblin messing things up. And then maybe they did it. Maybe they found the goblin.
So the other name is TG387.
That's just short for the Goblin. 387 are great numbers.
That is the suggested amount of times you should say it with increasingly exciting tone each time. 387
the
times.
Goblin, the Goblin, the Goblin, the Goblin, the Goblin, the Goblin, the Goblin. Weird things, Goblin.
Yeah, no, Brian, you got to start way lower if you're gonna go 387 times.
Says you. I just got back from Vegas. The Goblin, the Goblin, the Goblin.
So, just reading here, it's funny because there's some people saying that we should call it Planet 9, Planet 10, etc. And I think this was.
Oh, you know what? J.C. Calhoun in the chat has me dead to rights. What I described would more traditionally be thought of as a gremlin. Sort of, you think of a gremlin as a mischievous error that's messing things up.
Yeah, but you can save that one for the inevitable remake.
The researchers nicknamed the object the Goblin because of the discovery date and the TG in the provisional designation, because it's TG387, so the Goblin.
So I was right on. Although the gremlin would work as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Chun, 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 chun. Sorry. Listen, we've talked about this before. Our solar system is weird. Our solar system is filled with objects. There could be more stuff out there. There could be Mars-sized objects. There could even be another Earth-sized object out there in the vast outer reaches of the solar system. It's not outside the realm of possibility. The reason we think that there's this planet 10 is because this thing's would be 10 times as massive as Earth, and that's how big something has to be for us to think we see the effects of it. But when you're talking about objects that are smaller, Earth-sized or Mars-sized, the fact that we just discovered a 200-mile across dwarf planet kind of tells you there's a lot more out there. There are probably dozens or more objects like that size to be found. And I would not be surprised if we found another Mars-like, sized object. Now, it'd be extremely cold.
I guess the big problem is that what we're looking at right now is a highly elliptical orbit, right? So maybe there's a time, let's say, I don't know, 50, 100, 200 years from now, where it's going to be close enough that we'll see it in the sky and it will appear to be real close. But for right now, it's just so far out that
we wouldn't even as closest, we wouldn't be able to see it with naked eye.
No kidding.
Yeah, because if you look at that map, look back again, look at where it shows the inner scale is like the Kuiper belt's the outer limits of that, which is
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this case, they're not putting out a lot of heat. They're not reflecting a lot of light. So there's no reason we would be able to see them.
Not naked eye. And this is one of these things where the hard part is that in order to spot these things, we look at the sky and we think of those kind of maps of the star maps, and they're a very flat map. But the reality is that space is just three-dimensional in the ways that our mind, kind of explodes thinking about. And so some of those bright objects are ridiculously far away, and with some of the smaller ones are really, really close. But if you took some of the smaller objects in the sky, some of the smaller stars, and put them as far away as some of the ones that seem, like they're closer because they're brighter, we wouldn't see them at all, because it's just, how close they are. Some things are a few light years away. Some are hundreds and hundreds of light years away, or thousands of light years away. Yet we can still see them because they're so bright. And you take, as you pointed out, Brian, the amount of light these things reflect is next to nothing. Some light. You have to have a telescope aimed at a very, 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 imagine, basically looking at your computer display and only focusing on 1 or 2 pixels, waiting for something to appear there.
Yeah. And of course, we've seen with the discovery of all these exoplanets, we're able to get a lot of information just from looking at a star and seeing how dim it gets for how long, and implying from that. So likewise, you would have to have a perfect starfield map of stuff, and then just by which star winks out for how long, you could figure out.
Well, you may not have to have it wink out. I mean, they are reflecting light, but you just have to be really, really, the ones that are in our solar system, they're reflecting enough light for us to possibly see them, but it's just, there's such a tiny, 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 tiny part of the sky. You have to separate it from the noise.
Right.
And the point you brought up there too, when we look at extrasolar ones, Lauren's other, we spot those because we'll go look at the bright shining thing called a star, and we'll see if we can see anything next to it reflecting light. But if you look, a couple, a degree to the left or right where it's a very dark part of space, there could be a ton of stuff out there. We just can't see it. So, Goblin.
You're welcome, worlds.
Yeah, I'm still on the side that, hey, if you're listening, just email in. Bryce, where should they email? If you name this planet and you're listening right now and it's why you thought of the Goblin, then Bryce, where should they email?
Email neshcom at gmail.com, NESHCOM. Use the subject line, weird things.
Be sure to keep that window open, Bryce, because I'm sure that email's coming in anytime soon.
Only serious people. Please, only
inquiries.
Seriously, if you named it,
Please.
then email it.
So a thing to bring up again is just because these things are way off outer reaches of the solar system and very little sunlight reaches them, doesn't mean they're dead worlds. You could have water underneath an ice cap, and it could be hundreds and hundreds of miles thick ice cap. But if you have geothermal activity, which will continue on and on and on, for billions of years, in some worlds, you could have life there. You could have, I don't know about Goblin, but something larger, large enough to have real serious geothermal activity.
Well, and we talk about, what do they call them? Rogue planets that are just drifting from galaxy to galaxy, basically gigantic spaceships of a sort.
Yeah, I don't know if a rogue could escape a galaxy, but certainly between solar systems, yeah.
Sure.
But I mean, there's because think about like the escape velocity. But again, that's it's one of these things where we go, nah, I don't know if even that could happen. But then
I guess if I'm going to say between galaxies, I'm thinking, like Milky Way and Andromeda are on a collision course. At some point, they're going to be close enough that a rogue planet that has been hijinksing around the Milky Way, could just fall into the
but I was just thinking like, I mean, I wonder like space is weird, and so you don't want to be in the position of going no, there is the fast radio bursts FRBs. These are just kind of these weird phenomenon that we're starting to detect even more of them. There's a new telescope came online, and we found we're finding tons of these pulses. They're extremely energetic. Like the amount of energy produced these things is ridiculous, and we're having difficulty trying to figure out what the hell could put out that much energy.
And we previously, listening to the skies, isn't that how we discovered pulsars? As they're shooting off radio waves like crazy with this very rhythmic thing, but that's just a star. I don't want to say collapsing in on itself. How is it that it's just spinning so fast?
It's got the magnetic, like the north and the south, the magnetic field. So it's coming out of one part of the magnetic field. So as it spins, we're getting exposed to that part of it.
Man, space is crazy.
Yeah, or those magnetars. And it's big, and lots of things happen, and stars sort of form weird, and that was one of the great sort of stories was I think the guys working for like Bell Research Labs trying to figure out why this radio antenna kept getting static. They cleaned it out, emptied it out, checked everything, looked for anything terrestrial. They're still getting this background noise, and somebody's like, what would be the background noise level of the Big Bang?
Yeah. That's one of the wildest things. The idea of that, what looks like a bug is the greatest feature of all, is that you're seeing the residual static energy indicative of the beginning of the universe.
Listening to creation. That's
insane.
Yeah, imagine like, all right. Justin, I want you to be in your office. Okay. Brian, I want you to be the guy that's realized what this noise is and go tell him, hey, guess what we found out we're listening to?
Hey, boss.
Stamping papers. All these stars are now official by me.
Listen, boss, if you could pause.
Well, remember, like you're just working at like a radio telescope, working on engineer, like low level. You're not even
never
like,
mind. I'm sorry. I was
space stuff. You're like microwave development technology and stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. Stamping my own personal baseball collection. I'm just doing things by myself. I'm screwing off at work.
Hey,
I should be
Vegas J.
Disc.
Vegas J. Listen. I gotta tell you, I tried everything. I cleaned the antennas. I rewired the antennas. I played baseball with the antenna.
Number one, no refunds.
Okay,
all right.
No.
I made it very clear when I sold you this radio equipment that I don't care what you think you heard. It was cleaned by me. You break it, you buy it. This is an app. Don't you try to push this one back on me. You're hearing crazy stuff. This is on you.
Really quick side note interruption here. So, it was Wilson and Arno Penzias who discovered it. Penn Jillette actually has a joke that like Penzias tells or something like that. I think the Cheeto joke or something like that. He's got a funny story about that. But anyhow, they were testing this antenna, and it was this is funny. It's kind of serendipity here. Remember the Echo balloon project? This was sort of like a giant sort of like balloon satellite thing. They wanted to bounce big silver balloon. They wanted to bounce signals off of that.
Like
sort of
a
an
proto,
easier way to do. What's that?
Proto satellite, basically.
Yeah, the idea is instead of like putting like a high tech thing, they just do this big silver balloon thing that could reflect radio waves. And that's what this was part of. They were trying to find this. Somebody contacted me this a couple days ago and asked me if I wanted a piece of that.
Oh my God!
Holy cow.
So it's on here. Anyway, you're just your balloon radio wave bouncing kind of stuff. That's cool.
Look, man.
Look, here at Bobo's Bouncing Balloons have stood by our balloon ability for years. I don't think. Listen, I know I can smell a bad Yelp review from a mile away, and it sounds like you're about to tell me that you want a refund or something.
No. Well, I mean, this is doubly awkward because I wasn't gonna give a bad review. I was going to say that I'm pretty sure I figured out that whole hissing background noise issue, which I know you're sensitive about. You're proud of your equipment. It's very sensitive, but after triple, quadruple checking, I think what you're selling as antennas may in fact be a literal window to the creation of the universe.
Only balls, no windows. We don't sell windows here. So if you're thinking about if you heard some rumors, all right, I might have a side hustle going. Don't tell anybody. My dad doesn't know about this. I am getting into free installation. It traps heat in the winter and retains air conditioning in the summer. I'm just letting you know.
I think you're misunderstanding me. What I'm saying is what you're selling just as antennas for broadcast, in fact, are able to listen and possibly see the shape of how the universe was created. Quite possibly the greatest scientific advancement in our lifetimes.
So five stars? Yep.
I mean, there are more than 5 stars in the universe, and you can detect the birth of all of them thanks to the background radiation left from the creation of the universe.
Wait a minute. I'm calling Yelp. Like, we deserve more. We got to change the scale.
So they ended up collaborating with some other researchers who are about to start on a project to try to measure this, because after they narrowed it down from, dirty antenna, dirty all this sort of thing, finally they're like, maybe this is something bigger. And that was kind of one of the, a great discovery, just a great discovery in science and that's part of what makes science work, is the convergence, is they go like, well, somebody wrote this paper and they predicted this thing would happen here. And here we are with this big antenna and this thing happened here. And that's how so much of science works.
It's that it's weird to put it in Sherlock Holmes terms, but it's like they did that deductive reasoning thing, where once they eliminated the impossible, what remained, no matter how insane it sounds, was the truth, which is this is the background radiation of the creation of the universe.
Yeah. And that is... sometimes you'll get sort of dismissive attitudes towards like the science. You hear like, oh, well, Western science or Westernness. All that sort of means is, hey, I do some research, you do some research, I check yours, you check mine. We make guesses, we test our guesses, and guess what? Sometimes we find out totally unrelated things converge. And, like, hey, we think, because of the soil displacement here, the skeleton's this old. Hey, we've done some radiation testing. It turns out this soil is this old. Hey, we've done some DNA testing and we look for mutations. Looks like the skeleton's this old and it's roughly the same area and our margins of error overlap. Science. Funny thing, that's science. And it's not funny.
What's that, Andrew?
If the show can't go on.
Oh, no! No one wants to live in that world, Andrew. How can people make sure that we stave off such an awful apocalypse?
Yeah, you describe quite literally the worst of all possible timelines.
Well, with their support, we could go on.
Oh, a call to action, you say? Where?
I do.
Where? What?
I did.
But what specific benefits will come about as a result of people contributing at patreon.com/weirdthings?
We keep doing the show and we try to do things like, I don't know, real live investigations. We really do want to make this thing happen with the Weird Things Live Texas sort of thing. And that'll make, part of what'll make that possible is using the support from the show and the podcast to make that a reality. And we want to do more content. We want to do more cool stuff. We would like to be able to do some more live events, things like this, even some fan-based stuff. We've talked about that. And, more interactions, more fun, more weird. And through your support, make that happen.
Don't forget about your personal benefits. You get the extra show after things right there in your very own personal RSS feed. Easiest thing on the planet. You just copy and paste it into your podcast app. And now, instead of just one show, you get to hang out and listen to us speak directly with real numbers and real direct honesty about what it's like to be an independent creator. And most importantly, answer your questions.
Some people say After Things is the best thing, they listen to within that time span that they listen to it. In all seriousness, we get into what it's like to be a creator. We give our advice. It's sort of our kind of our little MFA course on how to make a living or survive as a creator. And sometimes we have good advice. Sometimes we probably ruin lives. But, take some, give some, lose
Either
some.
one.
Just remember that if you take the advice, it's now your fault.
Exactly. I don't want to get political here, folks. I don't want to get political.
But I think the Whigs have taken it too far this time.
Whoa. That sounds like Tory talk to me. What are you doing?
Hey, check the receipts.
I'm a Fig Leaf Party member, so it's totally different for me.
Yeah, bull moose or die.
Yeah. Gentlemen, politics is getting ugly, and I figured maybe we need to show you a campaign ad. It's really outside of our realm of what we talk about here and weird things, but I'm not going to stand by anymore and just let this happen. Bryce, do you have that queued up?
I do have this queued up.
All right, I'm going to play this for you, and I want your reactions to this ugly, disgusting campaign ad that's going on.
Politics,
All right,
man.
Let's go take a look.
Here you go.
I thought I was good at hiding. Then Eric Paulson comes along.
Watching,
how can you have
this is
tens of thousands?
Bigfoot narrating?
It's
this as a campaign ad.
This is amazing.
This is
Justin probably
great.
knows more about this. Here, we can just play the video in the back. But it's basically an interview with Bigfoot, who is just aghast at how much better political candidate number 275 is at hiding than he is.
Yeah, this is for a Minnesota House seat. Of course, the House is probably going to have the House will have all eyes on it on election night tonight or on in a couple weeks. But this is an ad against Eric Paulson, where Bigfoot, looking to find the I guess scantily seen Eric Paulson on the campaign, decides to go to a big pharmaceutical company where he is known to spend a lot of time and take money so he can stake out and see if he can take a picture of the elusive Eric Paulson, to which he gets a loping stride evocative of the classic Bigfoot imagery.
Oh my God! Oh, it's so good because he has all of the trappings of what you would think of an outdoorsman trying to hunt down Bigfoot. He's got the his Yeti mug, his igloo cooler, and his freaking out in the moment when he actually sees it. He can barely get the camera up. That's
Yeah, right. Yeah, roll back and just play some of that audio there.
I was so shocked when I saw him walking by. I almost dropped the camera. But I got it. Visual proof. So take it from me, Bigfoot. Eric Paulson really exists.
That's where we're at in politics. Whereas, like, you deny the actual existence of the other candidate.
Not only is it maybe the best produced ad of this midterm season, and by the way, if you want to see all the best midterm ads, as well as discussions of the best things that happened during the midterms and a live decision desk on election night, you can come see me live performing at the Piano Fight Theater. Get your tickets at bit.ly/wavewatch in San Francisco. But it also is not the first time that Bigfoot was brought up in this midterm season. As I think we discussed on here, the authoring of Bigfoot erotica became a campaign issue in another House race earlier this year, where the lady that brought it up was indeed Olivia Wilde's mom, actress Olivia Wilde's mom, who's running for Congress.
Wow.
Leslie Cockburn, a Democrat in Virginia.
I mean, what is Bigfoot erotica? A Virginia congressional candidate accused her opponent of being into it. I would say that the window of like, well, you like weird stuff is in an age of the internet is rapidly closing. Like, I mean, as a contentious issue of enjoying increasingly marginalized entertainment of all varieties.
Well, this only stemmed from because one of their opponent's friends put a like Instagram or tweeted a photo of a sketch of Bigfoot with like the wanker like covered up, and he liked it.
Yeah.
You know,
So
he liked the
yeah,
post, so that's funny, and so.
the guy that she was referring to has written a book about Bigfoot, the mating habits of Bigfoot, and one of his friends did a version with a gigantic, just an arm-sized tallywhacker censored out, and it became a brief political issue. So yeah, no, Bigfoot has been getting mileage here. By the way, the latest polls have Dean Phillips up 5. So apparently the Bigfoot ad gaining traction in Minnesota's 3rd district.
And now we're gonna look for the Loch Ness rebuttal. And,
The Loch Ness rebuttal.
It's funny though, because that is something that I would be curious that the best way that that Eric Paulson could respond would be making another viral video that then played along, because for most everybody who's watching it and giving it views, they have no idea what the like facts on the ground issues in Minnesota's 3rd district are. They just want to see funny political videos.
I'll tell you what, it is a fine change of pace where if you're not actually dialed into, policy issues or whatever, I think for a long time we've heard the attack their character game like that is a well trodden song, and instead to put everything like, of course we're attacking his character, we're saying he's on the take for Big Pharma, but I for one welcome this change of storytelling in the political landscape.
Another thing too is just it's extremely well produced, which shows you how much money is going into these campaigns. That's the other thing, is like we're looking at the amount of money going into these what would have been considered sort of smaller campaigns are just incredible. And of course, the funny part about this crazy season is that like how fast people turn around and produce these campaign ads, and sometimes it's comically evident when you look at like they literally shot this yesterday and released this today. But this was a very, very the costume, everything was very well done, which you're just like,
and the writing and even the acting. I mean, that dude, whoever's playing Bigfoot, has good comedy chops, because he was able to convey this like Seinfeld-like confusion.
No, it looks great. If you are only listening to it, please look it up, because the creature design on Bigfoot is awesome, and the guy playing Bigfoot is really, really, really funny. So. That is, in my mind, that is, and granted, low bar, because political ads, especially now, they all tend to be the same, like, motion graphic Photoshop about, dishonest Larry has been consistently dishonest about our seniors and our houses and our food. Dishonest Larry, dishonest with food, dishonest with you.
And the thing to keep in mind too, and Justin can go into this way more than I can, is that
by the way, I'm voting against dishonest Larry. I was on the fence up until that ad.
The thing to keep in mind too is that when you watch these things, is that like very often that was a campaign that the campaign media company has had in its pocket for a couple years and has offered to like other politicians, like, do you want it? Too wacky, and like, how about this? And they're like, oh yeah, we'll do this. Like, yeah, we already got an actor we could do with this. We already got the thing ready to go. We already got a director in mind to go do this. That's the thing that sort of we kind of forget about, the whole political, the business machine behind there of just teams of people that come up with this stuff, which, the movie The Candidate starring Robert Redford was kind of a great example of that.
Oh yeah, and we should probably veer out of here right after this. But the money that is coming in now is crazy. There's a very contentious political race in where Brian is in Texas right now, where in the 3rd quarter of this year, so just leading up the big prime money raising season, the Democratic candidate raised $38 million. That's more than Jeb Bush rose in his entire campaign running for president, and he was one of the more well-capitalized candidates in his entire run. So Right now, we are very, spoiler alert, in case you guys haven't noticed, people are very interested about politics these days, and that has translated into big money, which means on the only pure side of this is that we at least get a silly ad with a very funny Bigfoot.
And from the chat, whose game is it? Does point out, he says, honestly, I like Dishonest Larry. He's pretty open about his dishonesty. And are we gonna?
You know what you're getting with this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you know what you're getting with Dishonest Larry, man.
Hi, I'm Dishonest Larry, and I approve this message. I like being weird with food. I don't know. Vote for me.
I want to take it into a totally different direction now. One of the things that's happened in the last few years is scaling up of quantum computers. They went from like, we don't know if it's really a thing, and there was companies like D-Wave and then IBM and whatnot were able to create systems where they could take particles and be able to put them into like multiple states and measure them and create kind of qubits, which allow you to do processing theoretically faster than traditional computers. And we've been at this point where the debate was like, well, conventional computers are still faster, but now we're getting to the point where some of these computers seem to be kind of like functioning like really, really highly specialized graphic cards. And now quantum computing actually starting to show benefits. And we're starting to see like applications for that. We're seeing more research using this, that you can actually like rent time on a quantum computer now to do stuff. And it's one of these things that it's going to follow its own scale, where there's probably going to be a point, where we might be doing larger scale processing on quantum computers, incredible kind of, AI processing, image recognition, things like this, where you could, execute so many different applications at once. Anyhow, in a really cool research, some scientists said, hey, let's use a quantum computer to simulate life. And they built a very, very simple program that basically replicates like, this particle's next to here, or this object's next to here. It can either do this or do that. And there have been life replication systems before, like the Game of Life, et cetera, that have been used to like create, unpredictable sort of outcomes. And so some researchers did is they created basically a program to do that. And they put it into a quantum computer and used a quantum computer to do an artificial life simulation.
Oh my God.
So much to unpack. For someone who is not me, explain what a quantum computer is and what makes it quantum.
So, you take in the idea of in quantum mechanics is the idea that a particle can have, you can't know precisely its location or its location or its speed or certain factors about this, right? Or if you try to measure one thing, some other aspect of it collapses, you get a collapse. So you force it into this. So you could have a particle where you have a microchip and you have a transistor, it can be on or off, right? If you're taking, let's say, beryllium atom or something like this, I don't know what they're using, and you try to put it into some sort of, it could have multiple states at once, and then you can put a couple of them together, and you can basically use them to execute computer programs to say like, calculate this, find the state at which this satisfies the answer to this,
The version, and tell me how close to correct any of what I'm about to say sounds.
Like I would be the judge of that, but please continue.
On this panel, you certainly are. But like quantum computers take advantage of atoms or whatever being in a superposition, and that technically they are both yes and no. And then they collapse the superposition, and it turns out to be one thing or another. Something like the traveling salesman problem. The question is, you got 17 cities that you have to get to. What is the shortest route to, or the best route to take to visit all 17 cities geographically across the United States? The way current computers would do it is like, well, let's run option A. Oh, okay. Now we know that's 1,800 meters, or whatever, 18,000 meters. Now let's run option B. That's slightly more. That's slightly less. And you keep doing it one at a time, iterating it. Whereas another solution is they talk about DNA computers, where basically you have a bunch of molecules and each one is assigned values, and by being massively parallel, you just wait and see which ones find each other, and then that reveals the best answer. quantum computers are theoretically, if I understand this correctly, I'm almost certainly wrong, essentially doing an infinite amount of simultaneously parallel processes and revealing the one best solution to it. Is that anywhere close to accurately describing?
So not quite infinite, but the idea that like every time you add a particle to the system, you get like an inverse amount of capability. In theory, like kind of you get an inverse more amount of like capability to it. Or so like, if you have 3 transistors in a regular state, you can have like 3 bits. But if you get like the third particle in a qubit system and each one has like 3 states or something, you're getting to 27. And then with a very small group of particles, all of a sudden you end up with a computer that's pretty much capable of handling most of the computing needs of the entire universe.
And specifically, this matters on a boots in the ground way because encryption is something that we rely on, because if you intercept, let's say, you have a VPN and you just get a bunch of encrypted gobbledygook, with current computers, you have to be like, is it, let's try this cipher. Nope. Let's try this cipher. Nope. Let's try this cipher. And you have to do it. Whereas with quantum computing, the fear is that by essentially being able to be massively parallel, you can break all encryption fairly quickly. Is that right?
Let me read the Wikipedia, because I think probably they've spent a lot of time trying to break this thing down. And it's one of those things, like, once you sort of see the images and stuff like that, you kind of go like, oh, I kind of think I sort of, but I don't. It's like in quantum mechanics, once you think you understand it, you don't really understand it. But this is their description. A classical computer has a memory made up of bits, where each bit is represented by either a 1 or a 0. A quantum computer, on the other hand, maintains a sequence of qubits which can represent a 1, a 0, or any quantum superposition of those 2 qubit states. A pair of qubits can be in any quantum superposition of 4 states. So, instead of being a binary, it could be all of the above, and 3 qubits in any superposition of 8 states. In general, a quantum computer with n qubits can be an arbitrary superposition of up to 2 to the power of n different states simultaneously. So that's where we're talking about, like, it becomes an exponent. So if every time you add another atom to it, instead it's like, it becomes like 2 to the power 3, 2 to the power 4, 2 to the power 5. So if you get like 10 atoms, with the qubit states in there, it's 2 to the power of 10 is the computational power of it.
So in other words, thinking of transistors, we live in a world where it's always 2x, or like you add another switch and now you've doubled the number of possibilities. We go in this linear doubling of things. Now, granted, we are able to
into we'll say
yes, n times 2, but this is a geometric progression to where every additional switch you add, very quickly you have a number of possibilities greater than the number of atoms in the entire universe, and then eventually with a few more you have more than the total possible number of arrangements of atoms in the entire hypothetical of all universes. That sounds like some powerful stuff.
Yeah. And right now we're using systems that are just a few qubits. They're just a few qubits, but even those are powerful enough to do a lot. It's hard to maintain these things, the state, and measure them. There's been noise, issues of noise, whatever, and that's why people are skeptical. But now we have, we're realistically thinking we're doing systems with this, and so now people said, well, let's put in a program here where we have a life thing, a thing that an algorithm that evolves, that changes over time, and see what happens. The next thing they want to do is they didn't get the memo. They want to apply different genders to these algorithms and see how they interact and exchange information, how they evolve over time. And these aren't like terribly sophisticated sort of things, but from here, it can get really, really fascinating.
Man, we're very much at the fringes of what I'm even able to understand what we're doing, much less what the implications are going to be. Although weirdly, I think I can guess more of the implications.
Yeah, this could be a pick, but I got to pick. If you're curious, anybody's curious about this, there are some really good courses on this. I don't know if there's one. I'm sure there's one in quantum, but like a really good AI. There's a really good AI course on Udemy. It's like $14. It's 11 hours, which they take you through. You can have very minimal computer experience. Like basically, like they'll show you how to install software and how to run Python to use things to all of a sudden run your own systems and experience stuff and see things going on there. So there is some excellent stuff on there. Like we're looking right now, there's stuff on quantum computing, some AI stuff. If you have an interest in science in general, but you're like, man, I'm too old or I don't have the time for this, I think you'd be surprised at how much you can pick up, and even doing these hands-on examples. Like I really, it's changed my way of thinking about a lot of stuff, was going through doing some of these courses and playing stuff. And it's like, you see the world very differently, kind of scary. So, want to do some picks?
Yeah. I got a pick. I guess Justin and I might have the same pick. You go first, Justin. What's your pick?
I'll be the first man to pick First Man. In theaters now. Damien Chazelle and Ryan Gosling team up yet again, this time to tell the story of Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon. It really is a Neil Armstrong biopic, with the crescendo being the moon landing. But it is a human tale of the Gemini and Apollo missions, the men that and the families that made them up, and then of course, I mean, really the reason to see the movie beyond this, very well told drama, is I don't think I have ever in a film felt more terror of what early space travel was. Like it is. Equivalent to just being on a wooden roller coaster, except these men were going up into space, exploring reaches that no man had ever, been before. It is. We saw it in an IMAX. It was, the sound design is amazing. It's shot in such an awesome, claustrophobic way. It didn't really perform as well in the theater, and we could probably have another conversation as to kind of why it might not have connected in the way that I think it could have. I think it is. If you are a space fan, if you are listening to this because you are a fan of space and you are a fan of space exploration, it is kind of a must-see in that it really does bring you into that experience on such a visceral level.
Hey, one thing we didn't discuss, first of all, one thing the movie is very, very good at is conveying what it's like from a first-person perspective. You feel the claustrophobia of being inside that thing, and you don't get to see the grandiose size and scope of the rockets. You don't get a lot of the way the world reacted to things. You are very dialed in on the quiet, introspective nature of Neil Armstrong at all times. But after they land, spoiler alert, they make it back. They play on the news the original speech in which John F. Kennedy calls the moonshot, and it says, "Why do these things? Not because they're easy, because they're hard." But I didn't realize that in that speech are a bunch of very strong aspirational things. Why climb the highest mountain? Why do we plumb the deepest depths? Why does Rice play Texas? Like, he goes for a cheap local sports joke in the middle of this defining speech that crafted the next decade of policy. It's fairly remarkable. I enjoyed it a lot.
I saw it too. I loved it. I thought your assessments on that are absolutely spot on. It's very much from Neil Armstrong's point of view. Chazelle did a wonderful job of putting us in the cockpit, and not literally like here. Sometimes people will show his point of view, like, no, but we're inside there. How claustrophobic it is. The first time we actually see, I think, a whole spacecraft that he's on is when the Saturn V takes off, like that, because it's such an amazing sight. But up until then, everything, even when he's doing the X-Jet, the spaceplane test, stuff like this, and it's wonderfully done. It's really like, you just see it. It's limiting. Trigger warning: if you've ever been on a closed loop oxygen supply, locked inside of a cage and thrown into a hostile environment, and then have to get out of that surrounded by apex predators, you might be a little, oh yeah,
I mean, this is a fairly universal experience that I assume you're referring to. We've all been essentially astronauts surrounded by alien life with the intention of killing us. We've all been there.
I was going like, man, what is this? I'm like, oh yeah, but I mean, I would have just been mauled to death, not blown up to like a billion pieces instantly on national television in front of my friends and family. So, but it was kind of like there is that sense of helplessness because there's like when you're an astronaut, you're put inside this capsule, and they do a really good job of like the ratchet, the lock, the shut, and all that, and you're like, oh god,
yeah. There's nothing to be done here. Yeah.
Well, and I think that there are just these moments where. If you've ever, I think we've all on some level had those, whether in public speaking or sports or obviously like what you did, Andrew, with the shark cages and everything. You understand there are these moments in our lives where we
understand. Speaking, there was no shark cage. I got to point that out. But yeah.
Oh, sorry. When it was just
submersible.
He wishes there was a shark cage.
There are just these moments when you realize the difference between how we see something and what it feels like to do something. And there are these moments when you feel your own breath, so much more because the adrenaline's pumping so hard. Like that was these moments. And it starts out with one of them, Neil Armstrong in his space plane. And it makes literally one of the biggest achievements of all time so small and so personal. And having seen the movie and understanding the pace of it, which is deliberate, which is of course what we call long movies that we like, the long movies we don't like we call boring.
There is a less a nice word that some people that Mr. Plinkett would use.
I don't know exactly how much of a crowd pleaser this movie was ever going to be, but it is a movie about NASA's exceptionalism and the exceptionalism of the men in those programs. And I think that some of the controversy around it is in a lot of ways brought on by a really stupid quote from Damien Chazelle, the director, because I don't think that it was in any way disrespectful to NASA or in any way co-opting the legacy that those men have as a worldwide.
Yeah, to address this, like before, there's like you hear this thing like, oh, they don't show the flag or this. You see the flag. What we don't get is like the 8 minutes of awkwardness if you actually watched the film of when Aldrin and Armstrong unfurled and put together this aluminum flag. If you ever watched the actual video of that, and you're like, oh yeah, that's why we don't show it, because we don't get the actual erecting of the flag, but the flag is clearly visible on the moon.
Yeah,
it's there. It is, and I thought that. I think the producers, I like Gosling, I like them all, but I don't think they did themselves any favors in the press for this, because there was a reaction from people, probably on the right, who were like, we hear the flag's not there, and then they're like, well, we decided, and then it's like, and that became there's no flag, and no, the flag's there, the flag is on the moon.
You see the flag.
Well, and unfortunately, like the right answer was. This is a personal story looking into the heart of Neil Armstrong. And it is not, if this were a story of, the U.S.'s triumph in the space race to the Russians, that would be a fine, very important moment to feature in there. But we've seen that story before. We're telling a different story. And
I think the right answer is the flag is on the moon. We show the flag on the moon.
Flag, yeah. The flag is on the moon. B, I guess you could make a artistic argument of like, well, no, your big moment should be when they plant the flag. And it's like, no, there are
and then the answer is like, that's great. One of which, I look forward to that in your movie.
The other which you should see the movie. And the big moment is him planting his foot on the moon, which I think for a movie that is about these like scientific steps, that was the moment in which the world changed for them.
To be honest, that's not even that to me less important than the first step.
We don't want to talk.
Yeah, there are surprises in this movie. There are surprises that there's for people who didn't see it coming. There are surprises in this movie that will pay off as far as what goes on there. Do Buzz and Mike Collins get the short shrift in this? Somebody asked. They're in it, but it's about Neil Armstrong.
Buzz is certainly. I do not know enough about that story to know how true this is. But Buzz is certainly a bit of a cuss.
Well, it's the difference. Buzz to me looks like the way I would imagine an introvert views an extreme extrovert. And you know, Buzz speaks like 4 times, and 3 of those 4 times you kind of agree with Neil. It's like probably be better if you weren't talking right now. Yeah. You know.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought, look, if you're a fan of space, you have to go see it. The strongest moments for me are just understanding what happens when, you know, this is a neighborhood. Like all these guys live together. They lived on the same block. Their families are friends. And what happens? I mean, we know, you can read the Wikipedias and find out what happened, you know, how these missions progressed. But like, this was like a decade of all these people's lives. And it is fascinating to kind of watch that unfold, considering A, what the stakes were, and B, what the cost was. And they play and Whitey's on the Moon, which is a poem that Andrew shared with me many years ago, which has always been one of my favorites. And there's not a lot of
also archival footage of Kurt Vonnegut just crapping on the whole venture. It's amazing.
Well, sitting next to Arthur C. Clarke.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's another great element of the movie is you understand, like, hey, look, this is one of those things, and it's really funny because we oftentimes talk, you know, Tesla and SpaceX and Blue Origin and all these, you know, companies that have big, gigantic bets, and you saw this one was government funded, you know, how much there was, and I don't think unreasonable public outcry of how much money are we spending on this and how successful is it going to be with the, you know, like that there will always be mounting criticism until you put the turkey on the table and you see how much had to go in both in cash and commitment and talent and ingenuity to have that happen.
So in its context is, yeah, because we it's one of these things we remember it as, oh, we all supported it as we went to the moon when it was very politically unpopular. And you know, like you go to like science museums and stuff, like how much would we be spending on space research? And Neil deGrasse Tyson says, you know, we used to spend this much. Now we only spend this much. Yet Apollo program was 2.5% of the GDP Okay. That's how much was spent of the total gross domestic product. And people were pissed. So, you know, in retrospect, you know, now that we paid that tab, we're like, yay, we did this. But at the time, it was not. And it's like people like, you know, like we should bring back NASA's budget to that point. Yeah, see how well that'll go over for a while, particularly there is a scathing report that came out from NASA about the SLS last week. Did we talk about this?
No, we haven't, but I saw it in the news, basically saying gonna cost even more. Also, hey, Boeing, how efficient are you?
Rips into Boeing for inefficiencies, poorly running things. I mean, it is harsh, and criticized NASA for, like, NASA would give Boeing bonuses even though Boeing was late and not delivering stuff on time and slipping. And it is listen, we all want to go there, but you can't just say at any cost is fine when you never get the thing you want. And it's the sunk cost fallacy. And we are in the middle of this right now with the SLS program. It is just, you know, we're in the middle of like, well, yeah, but we've already put this much money into it. And that's kind of how government contractors, you know, keep screwing us over. You know?
Yeah. Government contractors, many times not unlike, you know, contractors that you might hire to redecorate your kitchen or something. There's always more expense and more time that tends to come into it compared to the initial bid. And we're not going to polish the "I told you so" apple on this one, but this is something that we have been calling as a turkey from the very jump.
And the other part, a complicit part, is the politicians in states where this money gets spent, and it is both sides of the aisle here. You know, you can't point your finger at one party because they both do this. And it is, if you're a politician from, let's say, Alabama or Florida or whatever, and billions of dollars are getting spent or wasted on this, it's fine because it's federal money coming into your state. So
It's
you don't want to
jobs.
kill this program. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here, and it's frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating because now the Air Force just gave contracts to develop next generation launch vehicles. They gave a contract to Blue Origin, and I want to say it was like I think the ULA Vulcan program. I could be mistaken on that. And another, I forgot the other provider for that. But three, SpaceX didn't get one, and people are like, why didn't SpaceX get it? And it's probably because Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy are already functioning, developing rocket systems. But anyhow, there's this encouragement. Let's have more competition. Let's get more out there. So
Yeah.
behold.
Because that and you want to know what? I think everybody here, and we are obviously fans of SpaceX, but the more we as a country can have a variety of competitors and not an oligarchy of federal defense contractors that just pass on, create gigantic projects that they then subcontract out to each other so they can continue to, propagate the system. That's better. That's fine. If the government wants to incentivize making sure that Blue Origin is at a comparable level to SpaceX so they can effectively bid them against each other because they are just private companies who are developing these things, awesome.
If it gets us more, absolutely. Any other picks, Bryce?
Yeah,
Brian,
I guess
sorry.
I do have another pick. I'm reading Yuval Noah Harari's 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. You heard me talk about Sapiens. You heard me talk about Homo Deus. One's about the story up till now. The other's about where humanity's headed. This one is basically a meditation on what are the right now things we should be dialed in on, given what we've learned about tribalism, about the way Homo sapiens works and where we're headed, about the way that even our beliefs are hackable as algorithms take over more and more of the day-to-day work and the ways that they can shape things. It's I'm about 2/3 of the way through it. It's fascinating stuff. But I would recommend read the other two books first.
Excellent.
Uh,
Bryce?
I do have a pick. So one of the things that I managed to find some time to watch while we were out in Las Vegas over the weekend, I had downloaded a lot of the new episodes of the new season, or the new part, I guess, of Terrace House Opening New Doors, and boy, does it go places.
A supermarket.
I've talked about it a lot. It's a reality show about 6 people in Japan living in a house and trying to find love, and there's some real good meat on the bones of this 4th part now of Opening New Doors. So check it out. It's a very good show.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, it's been weird.
I gotta use a bathroom.
Yeah,
All right.
BRB.
Okay,
Right back.
sure. Do 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 do. Hey everybody. Yeah, Terrace House, Opening New Doors, Part 4 came out, and there's some surprises. There's some good surprises in there. It's the cast has changed a lot. Like, a lot of the members have kind of come in and out, both in the last part and even in the first part of this part. But it's a thing. When there's a new person, you can't quite tell how soon it's gonna take for you to like them. But there's some good people there. But yeah, I'm glad you guys liked. That was a good episode. That was good weird things. We're gonna do after things in just a few minutes here, so stick around. The stream's not going anywhere. We're gonna go after things. But yeah. I was surprised I was able to actually get through so much Terrace House because we were just doing so much stuff in Vegas. But I was able to watch a lot of it on the planes, in and out, and I would watch it at night to just help me fall asleep. Which is really good. Hey, Justin.
Yeah, man. No, Terrace House, get it in your life if you ain't watched it. Very polite.
Though
People
Part 4's got some
got some real drama.
some head-to-head clashing.
Oh wow, that's a very shocking. And a lot of very attractive young people in Japan wearing American sports jerseys.
Yes. Oh, you saw that Deadspin article?
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's so good.
No, I ran into when I was there. There was a dude in this bar in Golden Guy in Shinjuku that is wearing a Portland Trailblazers merch.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
No clue. He knew it was basketball. No clue where Portland was. No idea what the history of the team. Anyone who's ever played on it. It's just that's a cool.
It looks
thing.
good, and
It looks good. People dig it in Japan. They like basketball, but God, if they don't, if he couldn't name a single thing, but I wound up trying to explain where we were from by saying Portland. He's like, oh. Do you know where in general where no.
Never even looked it up. He didn't even look it up.
Ricky, so another show Scott Johnson won't like all pretty people. No, yeah, I will say.
Does he have a no pretty people rule?
There's some normal looking. I think they go out of their way to make sure that everybody looks. They just look like, if you would walk in and be like, that's an attractive barista. They're all like that. No one's super model hot unless they're be a model.
Terrace House does have a history of going after models.
Sure.
And
Hey,
university students.
just as a heads up, I might have to bug out at the end. I'm supposed to be there
outside?
for when Callie shows up on the bus. So I've got roughly 30 minutes starting now.
Oh, let's roll then.
Okay, then. Someone's cooking some food.
Sorry, hold on. We're the microwave's running here.
By the way, this is just breaking now. It looks as if Saudi Arabia will take responsibility for killing Jamal Khashoggi in an interrogation gone wrong.
Wow.
So how much? How much?
That's really, not to laugh, but it's really going wrong.
That one, that's boom, boom, boom. Ba-na-na, na-na-na-na, na-na-na-na-na.
Womp. I wonder
Now
just
the media
how.
will turn its outrage to all the other human rights violators.
I wonder just
Yeah.
how much poop they're gonna have to eat and of what variety. I mean,
Well, the fact that they're doing it
Is
is
amazing.
a sign that this is a, we can, I don't know, this is a very political kind of thing.
I mean,
But,
it's clearly a globally condemned action, and it looks like there was not a credible way for them to act like it didn't happen or wasn't their fault or whatever.
I think that it is a very believable and plausible theory that this was not what they wanted to do. The Saudis could make somebody disappear in a lot easier of a way
Right.
than this. And this was obviously, considering how many pots and pans fell on their head over the last week and a half, a bad time to do it. So I think that it's fairly remarkable that they're admitting to it, to be honest, because that's normally not.
That's not their MO.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's the financial pressure is that, when, that people call it. And I think that's great. It's like, man, there's another big economic powerhouse somewhere in the world that's banishing people and journalists left and right, and maybe has put millions of their own citizens under effectively house arrest and putting them into re-education camps. I can't remember what country that is. And I've watched editorials in places that were getting funding from them criticizing this, and it's like, I'm like, yes, let's bring it all out to light. Let's talk about all of it. But crickets.
Yeah, didn't the head of Interpol just got disappeared?
It's not important.
Yeah.
It's not really.
Yeah. International law.
It's an internal matter. I mean,
Yeah.
just as something that happens inside your consulate's an internal matter, but that doesn't matter. So.
Just all of a sudden, head of Interpol. Gone.
Yeah, but he wasn't a Washington Post writer who had, been with deep ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. So it's totally different. It's totally different. So let's start after things.
All right. We'll do after things now in 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to After Things. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Justin Robert Young.
Hello.
Brian Brushwood.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Super producer extraordinaire Bryce Castillo.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for the intro, Andrew.
My pleasure. So there was an article I've been sitting on this. Haven't had a chance to talk it over with you guys. It's kind of cool. Marketplace.org has an article on, they call it, like the headline is FOMO in China is a $7 billion industry, which, I take it to mean is like fear of missing out, but I guess it loosely referenced this. But what this is about is in China, according to some studies, there is an industry for like educational podcasting, paid podcasting is way more massive than here. Now they mention Patreon and all that there, but they're saying that in China, the market for buying podcasts, like audio episodes and stuff to teach you stuff is huge. Not counting, these aren't like advertised ones, but people paying ones for like how to invest in Bitcoin, how to make yourself more attractive to employers and stuff like this. So it's a very interesting article that goes into just,
forgive me. What I've heard so far indicates that China in general is more willing to pay for upgrades of knowledge in podcast or video form, which is a fairly remarkable thing given China's we could say either deserved or undeserved reputation as shrugging when it comes to knocking off intellectual properties of other people. 2 out of the 3 of us here on this panel have had products of ours, intellectual property products, show up without our permission from Chinese markets. So that strikes me, especially in a medium like of digital distribution, is fairly extraordinary that there's a robust market for people wanting to pay for that kind of informational tutorials.
Well, I mean, who knows how much of it is stolen, but part of what helps is the pricing. It goes through the phones, the phone-based systems, things like this. We saw this, remember years ago, and ringtones are the biggest market there is. Ringtones were huge, and then that sort of just died. But it certainly means that there is a demand in China for content, particularly a lot of it relates to like employment and opportunities, and a lot of it's self-help stuff, and there are parallels here. But it is interesting to see that they're saying primarily audio. And because I noticed they said this pay for knowledge economy, and it's not like here in the United States. I'm like, well, Udemy, lynda.com, and other ones, they cover that, but it's video. And so I don't know if we're carving that out specifically, but it is, I thought about this and well, there's here, what's similar here, and then using the Justin adage, but what's different? And I think the scope and size of it, and I think the fact that so much audio based, and I'm going to throw this out here, like there are times when I like to do video courses, but there are other times when there are things I like to learn by audio. I don't think everything needs to be an audiobook. I don't think everything has to be a 7-hour audiobook, and I don't think Audible, that model really works for that. I would love to pay $2 or $3 for, the Justin Robert Young audio on what he learned on Kickstarter, Brian on how I made the jump to become a performer, or this. I think there's a niche there for creating more specialized how-to audio content. It's not a podcast in the form of.
I agree. I think that there is certainly we have fully embraced the idea that a visual-less upgrade to our knowledge is something that we are fascinated by. So much so that even the most popular podcasts are in some way a like either take something away from it or learn something or hear a new experience. There's an undercurrent of kind of educational content. But I think that Andrew's right that you can focus that a lot more, and specifically in a world where we already have, the top shows are all about either a true story, so they're basically like a history with some gloss and sheen to it, or something more focused. Like you can say like, all right, no, would you like to learn how this kind of stuff works? Would you like to be better at researching yourself? Would you like to understand, something more hands-on and utilitarian? $2. Listen to it right now.
This is remarkable because all of a sudden I'm thinking, and you were there for part of it this weekend. We just went to Scoop Fest, and
No, Brian, I was in L.A. I was
sorry. I some of you were there this weekend when we went to Scoop Fest, and I found myself very excitedly. People had very specific questions about like, how do you navigate blank, right? And I found myself slipping into, let's say, you could phrase it as, rehearsed chit chat, right? You find yourself telling the same stories over and over and over again. And I ended up spending 30 minutes with this person saying, okay, well, your fundamentals are blank, blank, and blank. It sounds like what you're trying to do is blank. Watch for these pitfalls, watch me for the changes and try to keep up. I perceive that as not having any value because I'm just running my mouth off. And yet this person was like, you have, and as I was talking, I remember Matt Donnelly walking by, hearing a snippet of it, and having heard Brian do this routine of before, just basically tapped the dude on the shoulder, got eye contact, and pointed at me as if to say, listen to everything he's saying and do it. There's value here.
And then made the puppet mouth with his hand going blah, 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 blah.
but like, this is amazing to me because it makes me wonder if there's not a place for just a question and a 30-minute answer, authentic. And you might not think of that as material that you wrote, produced, and rehearsed to a point where it's got a polish. But that sort of dinner party chatter has real value to somebody looking to unlock certain things. And now all of a sudden, like when I think in terms of 30-minute content modules, I could probably come up with 20 or 30 questions that I could sit and directly answer based entirely out of answers I've given a million times before. And I had never even thought about doing a series of those as real quick, like, hey man, just give me $2. I'll give you 30 minutes of my full attention and tell you the truth as I've experienced it. That's crazy.
And it's funny because I know, having watched Andrew do his Periscopes and having had great long conversations about story and writing and the process to which our friend Cargill has really carved out a great niche on Twitter lately about just like pointing out little tidbits on writing every day or how to focus your story, and he's had great stuff this month about horror. All of his writing tweets have been about horror and trying to define on the broad level, like, how do you create a horrible villain, or how do you create an awful thing? All right, well, think about something in your life that you are creeped out by and then extrapolate it. Or the micro, if you're writing a horror script, then once every 5 pages, there has to be something where it even if it's a jump scare, it has to be something that continues to keep that tension. That I would love to just I would pay $2 to download. Andrew tell me about things that he's already. I get it for free because I get it right from the cow. But I think you all would also enjoy Andrew talking for 2 hours about tension and suspense and characters and when there is something that how do you build a mystery? How do you write every day? How do you keep focus and everything? I think that there's a tremendous amount of worth. And Brian, I've heard we've joked about the fact that we really should have had some sort of Patreon offer code, because if we were to get a fraction of the Patreons that have all been created because we gave the please, have you heard the good news?
Right.
Livable income has risen and could be yours. We would have a lot more money. It's. I'll tell you what, I'm into it. Are we doing it? Are we starting this? Company?
I gotta tell you, I sort of feel like, and I don't know if it's $2 a nugget or a dollar just seems so disposable. $1 for 30 minutes to answer one question. I feel like if you had qualified people. Let's say, just speaking off the top of our head, imagine if Romany Malco, gave direct answers about what people do and don't understand about the way Hollywood works. Greg Grunberg talks about what it means, why take the smaller roles and what power are in that. Brian talks about quitting his day job. Justin talks about striking out as an independent creator. Andrew answers a 30-minute question or a single question for 30 minutes about, okay, you hear this about writing, but this is what nobody believes. Like, that just seems like a wonderful candy store that I personally would go nuts on, and you eliminate all of the BS, none of the welcome to the so-and-so thing. I have to come up with another thing this week, but instead everything is just meat. I gotta feel like there's a real marketplace there.
So, hypothetical. Yeah, and I think there's some things like pricing, things like, because like, and I thought a lot about like what I'm like, you kind of got to let the market figure out what that is. And like creators sort of decide what they want to do with it. But I have a lot of free time. I know how to code.
No, I'm 100% in. I think anywhere between a half hour to an hour, on specific questions, because this is what I would love.
I think we leave it more open. I think that you kind of, I think this, if somebody says like, if I wanted to do a 5-hour writing course, or something.
Sure. No. Yeah, if you want to build a larger thing, then sure. But I would say like, if I'm just going on all the stuff that Brian, I know Brian just has the well-worn file that he accesses to play the MP3 of these stories. Like, why Brian quit his job is something that I know you have told a million times and contains very specific good advice about feelings that people have at day jobs, feelings that people have about becoming an independent creator, and when the time to jump is, not only emotionally but also financially, right? And understanding like what goes into it. That to me is something that, like, yes, you've said it probably many dozen times on the internet, but guess what? Now in a world, what we used to know before was that, great, everything on the internet is recorded, we'll be able to find it. Now, since everything's been recorded, we're like, this is all effectively useless. Like, we are like sure, I'm gonna go find one molecule in the ocean because I really want to remember that molecule. No, re-record it, make it easy, make it $1 for when to quit your job.
Well, and it's as though it's evocative of that image when Neo starts getting his upgrades, and they take a cartridge. They pick up a cartridge, and he says, "Jiu-jitsu, I'm going to learn jiu-jitsu." Plug it in, and 30 minutes later, he knows jiu-jitsu, right? It's the same thing, like self-employed authoring. I'm going to learn self-employed authoring, and then, and it's like, well, shit, yeah, I got it.
Well, Brian, that brings me, there's some other stuff I've been working on as far as looking into using machine learning to create summarizations, how to ramp up the speeds of this. And also something that it's one of the problems in some audiobooks and some stuff is you have people who have content, but they don't have, let's say, audiobook narrator voice. And Amazon Polly has become really, really, really good. And one of the things I was thinking about is the option. It's like, hey, let me listen to this in this other voice at 1.5x speed, because some of these things, one of the things too, it's like, I'll listen to the first time.
This is auto conversion of printed media and just robot vocalized.
So, but what I could do is you could take somebody's voice, translate it into text, check the transcript, have them check the transcript, then convert it back into a computer voice.
I think there's something there. I guess right now I don't hold computer voices in high enough esteem for me to feel like that's how I would want to.
Oh yeah, well, let me throw it out there. I'm not talking about replacing Brian Brushwood's voice, but let's say you're a community college, economics professor who maybe doesn't have the strongest.
You're focused on what is something that scales. Like we all have material, and this is a way to take that material and translate it into upgrade modules that people can pay. Take advantage of what is already happening organically in China.
Make it easy for anybody who's maybe not a pro podcaster to create quality. Somebody who has quality things to say, but if you're not, if the microphone in front of your face is the one built into your laptop,
right?
Yeah.
So, like, for example, this is, I think we've talked about Polly before, but this is one of the Polly voices. This is the English female voice, Joanna.
Hello. Do you speak a foreign language? One language is never enough.
Here's
there's
the male
better,
voice.
but yeah.
Hello. Do you speak a foreign language? One language is never enough.
I'll tell you what, though, you speed that up, and the difference between that and a real human or even a pro audiobook reader gets a little bit narrower. Because, like, as I continue to listen to all my audio at a sped up rate, I could see. Not as a matter of fact, one of my favorite things was. They were listed as audiobooks. This is back when I used to pirate stuff. But somebody had basically taken just all of the written speeches of Michael Crichton and just done like a Stephen Hawking style, very rudimentary robot voice to it, and then sped it up. And I must have re-listened to all of those speeches like 7 times. It's astonishing when you're focused on the thoughts behind them, how little you really care about the module, the audio module that is bringing them to you.
When Hawking would go to like Caltech, people would be laying out around the quad on the grass and blankets, listening to speakers playing the computer voice.
Wow.
You just think about that. And the funny part is like, it was like pre-recorded. It was like Hawkins just sort of pressed play on the speech. I don't want to be.
Hey, look, man. Him and EDM DJs.
Yeah, I know. That was the thing. It's like this. It's sort of like, all right. I'm thinking he's just sitting there like he's playing like Galaga. That's what I would.
No, I really think there's something here, and I can't think of anybody. Okay, I could definitely imagine. There's a tier of self-help professionals who could do a bunch of 30-minute chunks and sell them for 2 minutes a pop. I don't know that there are a lot of people winning at whatever artistic game they're playing that are like, hey, guess what you're buying? The truth without a sponsor right now. And I'm just going to answer this question as if the two of us are alone in this room. This really could be a wonderful emerging market. I guess the closest I could think of to that is at the very, very high end. We see it with the master classes, and I forget the competitor to master classes, but you see people who really are at the top of their game and they've got nothing to lose. Enough money.
The
is
Sorcerer
being
Supreme
paid.
classes.
What's that?
Sorcerer Supreme classes.
Right, exactly.
I think it's actually the doctor classes.
But they've got nothing to lose because they're well established in their art, and the price is high enough that they're not going to ruin the market by giving up their best tricks or whatever. But you're watching Ron Howard just flat out tell you exactly why and how, and same with R.L. Stine and all that stuff. I think there is a middle class opportunity. Like I perceive the three of us as kind of middle class stars in that space. And no, we can't do it for $200 an episode, but I think we could do them for 30-minute nuggets for $1 to $3.
I mean, there's a portion of Andrew's early career that was built on me reading the audiobook. So, I mean, like if we were just to say that we already have an audience that says, hey, cool, if you guys do something that's at a reasonable price, we'll just get it because we like it.
So as far as what's in the landscape now, somebody mentioned, what about, does Audible have a self-publishing division? They do. ACX, and ACX is wonderful. ACX allows you to prepare your content, put it there, and then you can actually find somebody to narrate it for you, whatever, and split it. The problem with ACX, I think ACX is great for audiobooks and things like this, but ACX, you're getting, like, if you do the whole thing, produce the whole thing, one, there's a lot of hoops you've got to go through to deliver Audible content, as far as the preparation and stuff like that. And that's a holdout for the good and the bad. The good is it presents a lot of crap content from getting on there. The bad part is that it's like, if you want to do, there's not a lot of 1 hour, half hour sort of content on there, because Audible's primary model is people just say, I'm going to use a credit, but people don't want to use a credit for a 1 hour or 2 hour content. Yeah. And that's the niche that's sort of the thing, the trap that it sort of falls into. It's like, you sort of lose out on, there's stuff I go at Audible. I'm like, I want this, but it's only 2 hours. I can't, I don't want to waste a $15 credit on something I think is worth $3.
Right.
And also Audible pays you 40%. So, and I think you could flip this to more like ebook pricing, where you could give the creator 70%. I think there's a way to do more in line with that pricing. So, pay people, 2.5% what they would make elsewhere. So
I'm all for this. I'm in.
Basically, everything, like, it's almost as AMA as downloadable audio chunks, where like that is if you've made it in whatever niche you have made it in, then there's somebody who wants your secret sauce and would deeply love to meet you at a party and get this 30-minute face-to-face version, but I'm gonna guess for $2 would settle for the virtually face-to-face, you looking at a camera version of it as well. I think there's this is really remarkable.
So part of the advantage of it too is that I like the idea as a platform, is because if this thing existed right now, is that Brian doesn't need 1,000 other people to be on it to make it worthwhile. Brian has an email list, and Brian can say, hey, here's a link, go here if you want to get this. And the platform handles the delivery and payments and all that sort of stuff. And that's sort of the neat thing about it. It's not like a platform. Once you have the people know, oh, there's a platform, go there and they'll find other stuff by there. It increases, but its minimum utility comes into play. Because I thought about this, like, I would love to do this. Like, if I wanted, I'd like to sell this content. I don't want to do video. I'd like to do audio, but I'm like, where's my platform to kind of really move this if it's not, something I want to put on Audible, So.
The other thing that the very idea of this does is makes me think back, like we did the Wizard Academy class on how to build a tribe through online video. And, if you're going to spend 2 days talking about a thing, you're going to divide it into a bunch of, we'll say 2-hour hunks, right? And then each of those hunks is semi-divided into, sort of an A, B, and C chunk on there. And all of a sudden now you're looking at 30-minute discrete bits of business that you have to say. And if you just carve that out and write them on a piece of paper, like what's everything we said over this 2-day class that people spent thousands of dollars to come and listen to us say, now all of a sudden you just say it again, because again, it's the same thing that you say at a cocktail party. It's the same thing you say to another creator who walks up and asks one of the 7 questions every other independent content creator asks you. Now all of a sudden it's like, well, let me just record it, and this could be the version of Note, and put it behind a ridiculously small paywall of $2, where it's easier to buy it than to try to pirate it.
Yeah. So
anyway, thank you for the business. I've got some recordings to go do. Bye.
Listen, man, it's one of the things too. It's like you don't need to be the first. You just need to figure out how to make it work. You need to figure out how to make the thing work. And, we've seen people go in there and go like, I'm doing this thing. And then there's room for disruption. And now that there's so many people consuming podcasts and audiobooks, it's like, I think there's space for this. So
I agree.
I mean, not to mention, it's literally the best thing that you could advertise on a podcast. And we already do a lot of podcasts.
Oh my gosh. Right. All of a sudden where it's like, let's say in an after things thing, a question veers into, instead, like oftentimes we find ourselves saying like, oh, and this is covered in this book that the 3 of us have read called so-and-so or whatever. But then all of a sudden that switches to, we actually do a 30-minute treatise on this in this other thing.
That's just the natural way that we mention this. Like I'm saying that, like, even we have a bunch of podcasts currently that don't usually have ads on it. If the ad was just, hey, the 3 of us contribute content to this great marketplace. Like, have you ever wanted to know when to quit your job? Have you ever wanted to know how to become a published writer within 30 days? Have you ever wanted to know how to make an action movie for $99? Have you ever wanted to know, how to create, a Patreon, how to start a Kickstarter without losing your money?
Have you ever wanted, and also like experiential weird things? Like, I could imagine somebody who is freaking out because they're about to get booked onto some kind of talk show or whatever, and now all of a sudden there's a $2 30-minute module by Brian Brushwood that says what to expect when you go on a TV talk show, and then explaining like, look, they're going to do this. Yes, let them do this. They're going to expect you to be impressed with that. Don't be impressed with that. They're going to push for you to say this. If they do, I say no. But if they push for it, then make sure you're prepared with blank, blank, and blank. And then that is the anatomy of a successful appearance on a talk show. 30 minutes.
Yeah. How to get on TV.
Yeah. How to even get on. Yeah.
How to get on TV. Boom. Like, I mean, I always, to me, it's like geez, I'll tell you what, now it totally makes you look at like all those questions that you get constantly via email, poorly spelled. It's like now they're all like, okay, well, I don't want to type this out for the millionth time. So either I'm going to like go to a doc and copy paste because I do want to respect that you reached out. But now you can also be like, hey, also, 5-word answer this. Longer answer if I talked about it in this thing, if you care.
Here's
enough.
30 minutes on it if that's really what you're into. Man, that's brilliant.
All right. So there we go.
Hey, I've got to go pick up my kid from the bus. So let me jump in on picks real quick.
Brian's pick, children. Have them.
Yeah, have them. They're great. No, my pick was how much fun Mario Party is when you have friends. I've got kids.
Rub it in, Brian. Rub it in.
I've got kids, and so whenever we play a game, you're playing, you're being dad. But when you are with a bunch of peers and it's this wonderful nonsense engine, and it allows everybody to talk smack to each other, it was just a blast. What little of it we got to play while we were out in Vegas, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we played the new Super Mario Party with Mikey and his friend and Justin.
With 2 switches.
We did on 2, but I actually found out you can do 4 controllers on 1 Switch, I believe.
Oh, right on.
We just didn't have it set up right.
Okay.
But you can also do 2. You can do teams, and you can do 2. So if you're portable, not everyone's crouched over the same small screen. It's pretty cool with the local multiplayer stuff.
Yeah.
I had a blast. Mario Party's never not a good time.
All right. Peace out, gentlemen. I love you.
Okay.
Peace.
Justin, do you have a pick?
Oh boy. Aside from, really all that's been on my mind lately has been Scoop Fest. So I encourage everybody to go check out Ice Cream Social, the podcast. They are not only do a really fun show, but they are great guys, and they put on a hell of an event this weekend in Las Vegas. I would encourage you actually to go ahead and check out some of the. This is more the maker side. Go check out their Twitch channel, twitch.tv/HeyScoops. They just did, or the venue that they're at is called Show Creators. But they had one of the most ingenious and great looking setups that I've ever seen. It was all run off of iPads and iPhones that were either drilled into the wall or on great little handheld stabilizers. But the product that they put out was, and listen, it required somebody in a booth switching and everything. But there are times, and hopefully I'll keep talking to the point where they cut around a little bit. But between these are the 2 hard cams.
There were 3. There were 2 iPads up there. There was a gentleman on a actual camcorder, but then there was 1 or 2 guys at various times of the night with the iPhones on gimbals, kind of moving around.
But it looked just fantastic in terms of like cutting out to the audience and getting their reactions. Like it was live cut, just like a comedy special, which was really, really impressive considering how small of a footprint their gear was.
Oh yeah.
Because the image looked great. It was streaming fantastic. So yeah, big shout out to show creators. Very impressed with them.
Yeah, they made it so I pretty much had to do nothing this weekend. We brought a bunch of gear to do kind of a 2 or 3 camera setup, and they had it on lock better than we would have done. So like, super shout out to Jacob and everyone at Studio Creators Space.
Show creators, I
Show
believe.
Creators Studio. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you have a pick, Andrew? I don't know that I have one for After Things.
My pick is I'm gonna be a broken record, and just because like every time I'm insistent on it, somebody else may discover it and go, oh cool, this is great. Between lynda.com, which is free with mini library cards, that's lynda.com, and Udemy, and there's Udacity. If you're a little depressed, or you're feeling like your life's a little bit empty, or you're like, Bilbo, like, only so little butter spread across such large toast, whatever. If you're feeling like, man, I want a little something, go there, pick something you're curious in, just step up your skills a bit. Like, there's so much out there. And, my brain is just like fried from like, oh my God, there's this. Like, I've been overdoing it, like on the stuff that, the courses stuff, but it's my thing now. I don't like watch TV. I don't play games. I sit in there with a course on coding or something like this and go learn stuff. And, I just middle of working on something else, which I'll share with you guys at some other point, where it's like, oh, okay, I got to build this. Well, I'll use Swift for the iPhone part of it. I'll use Rails for this part. I'll use JavaScript for that. And then on the back end, I'll go ahead and I'll do Python. I'm not an expert at any one of these things. But because of these courses, I'm like, I know how to start and how to find answers to stuff. And, to think, if I told myself like a couple years ago, like, yeah, in the middle of you having this wonderful success with books and writing, you're going to go dive into this and you'll be able to do this, a week from now, anybody has an interest in coding or anything, a week from now, you could be way more proficient than you ever thought you could be in things like Photoshop and other stuff. So lynda.com, like I said, free with mini library cards. Udemy, they have, Udacity is kind of like a little more serious sort of level kind of people putting in there, but Udemy's got a lot of great courses and stuff. A 50-hour iPhone development course for $12.
Wow.
I mean, it's just... It's knowledge is cheap. Knowledge is really, really, really cheap right now. Plus, people mention, I don't know it, but I'm sure it's great too.
Do you on Udemy, because Udemy is more of a marketplace sort of thing? Do you end up going with the same creators, or do you just kind of do it based on topic? And what do you think? Like, do you have a good hit rate on like feeling like you got a good experience out of those lessons that you paid for?
I would say some of them have been wonderful that I've gone all the way through and I thought they're great. Some of them, you want to go check the reviews and see how recent they are and how often the courses are updated. I've had some frustrating experiences where I think that like this, they're just telling you how to copy paste code, which I don't like. And I've had some courses I took that I did not like that other people really liked. And I think that I don't know if they got the same out of it. Because I'm like, wow, this person spent 5 hours to teach us how to handle this unique situation that we're never going to handle. And now I'm bored, so it can be all over the place. But when I want to learn something, I take multiple courses. I just try to learn it from multiple instructors.
Cool.
So
very cool.
There you go. I guess that's it.
Yeah.
It's been after. Yay.
Alrighty. Hey, good shows today, everybody. Yeah. So we will be back with Cord Killers in a couple hours. Hey, Justin, you ever heard of the show Cord Killers?
Oh, I heard of it so much. I'm coming on today because we haven't spent enough time with each other. I'm invading other shows I'm not normally on. No, it's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. You doing anything else this coming week, Andrew? I saw you did a Periscope stream over the weekend, right?
Yeah, my girlfriend left me alone. I was lonely. John, if you heard that. I think we're gonna try to hit up some haunted houses and stuff, some attractions. I want to try to do that. Coding. I think I've alluded to Justin about. I haven't told you about Bryce. That's because it's like now I'm in this mode. Like, yeah, I guess we can make it. But it's like I'll show you this other thing that is
Cool.
But yeah, that's my thing. Boring.
Well, we'll be back in a couple hours here on the Twitch stream. Thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you guys later.
See ya.
If you guys stick around for a second, I'll show you something.
Sure.